how businesses adapt through dynamic situations. I think we can all agree that COVID-19 is here to stay, at least for the foreseeable future. So what we're going to talk about today is how do you get on with your business and live through this pandemic and make sure that you strive while this pandemic is going on. We have an incredible panel today, and I'm excited to say hello and welcome our first panelist. Warren Roas is Director of Regional Public Affairs for San Diego Gas and Electric Company. In his role, he's responsible for the company's support of local governments, tribal nations, elected officials, staff, and certain regional agencies. Next up, we have Erica Bill, who is the CEO and founder of AVIVV, a certified women and minority firm providing professional services to the gas and electric utility industry. Our next panelist is Matt Evertoff, has served as a strategic advisor and high-stakes communication trainer for numerous Fortune 500 companies and countless other organizations on location in over 80 countries around the world. And last but not least, we have Dr. Edward Williams, the founder and CEO of Solved Engineering, Inc., a professional engineering consulting and staffing firm for gas and electric utilities. Our topic today is how businesses adapt through dynamic situations. Warren, at the beginning of the pandemic, what were SDG&E's biggest concerns for its employees, customers, and community? And how can these best practices be followed in other businesses? How has being classified an essential service affected our suppliers and our employees?
Yeah, I think it's really important that folks realize that some services are essential, some are not. Obviously, gas and electric service is really essential. We're blessed to live in a country where that's an essential service and folks expect it. If you're working from home, you have to be able to open up your laptop. I know we have tons of entrepreneurs and small business owners who are on the webinar today. Having a stability of service at home to be able to execute what you can as part of your business it's just not optional. It has to be perfect.
Why should business invest time in creating a crisis communication plan?
An unfortunate reality of life is that crises, by definition, don't occur when everybody is in an office. It's 4 o'clock in the afternoon and everybody you need to access is available. They happen at inopportune times. And failing to prepare usually puts everybody in a situation that is not optimal.
Erica, we hear the terminology of corporate social responsibility. Why is that important, and how does it relate to the bottom line?
I gotta say, corporate social responsibility is even more important today than it ever was. We're right now working in a workforce where we have 4 generations working at the same time. And I think that's a pretty remarkable timing because we can leverage the expertise from the seasoned workers to the newest, millennials entering the workforce and really have an opportunity to collaborate and get some of probably the best ideas and ignite innovation, right? So I personally think that when you leverage these and you capitalize on the differences and the multiple of generations, and you seek that input and feedback, you're going to be able to take your business to the next level.
Hey, Matt, can you tell us what some of the secret weapons to effective crisis communication are?
I think the most effective weapon is time, which sounds a bit contrarian because in a crisis, one of the things that is hardest to find is time. But time can be your secret weapon. And what I mean by that is it's sometimes a minute, it sometimes can be 5 minutes, it can be 15 minutes. It's learning how to respond rather than react. And when we are faced with something that is completely unknown, shocking, different, and everything unravels at once, most of us have the natural inclination, me included, all the time, to react. Typically when we react and we have a moment to think about it, 5 minutes to think about it, 10 minutes to think about it, an hour to think about it afterwards, our response would have been different. The initial reaction, rather than waiting 15 seconds and responding, are much different. And in crises, everything becomes more important and more timely. So taking that pause of a second or 2 seconds before responding to a stakeholder or the media, taking 5 minutes to think about what you're going to say before you go on a Zoom call or a Microsoft Teams call with your staff and your team. taking an hour to be thoughtful about what the next steps are in the face of ambiguity and things that are unknown are increasingly valuable.
So in this very difficult time, and we're all making sacrifices, and we're wondering for how long. Any words of wisdom for us to hang in there, and that this one day will be over and a distant memory?
I would just say everything shall pass. Everything always does pass in life. And, as long as you have your family and you stay close to your friends, families, and relatives, and you lean on each other, never be afraid to ask for help, and you'll be all right. You'll get through it.
Hey, Matt, where do most businesses get it wrong when interacting with the press and the public during a crisis?
It's a great question. I think where most companies, to me, get it wrong is by assuming or guessing when they don't know the information. And in a crisis, there are things that you know, and there are things that you don't know. The most dangerous thing you can do is guess or assume. And I look at Warren again on this, because Warren in his position doesn't have the luxury of being able to guess or assume. He has to know things or not know things and find them out. And I think that is probably the most important thing that happens, because what happens if you guess or assume is you're going to find out a crisis evolves. Every crisis evolves. And we've seen COVID evolve from February into March, into April, into now we're in July. And it keeps unfolding with new wrinkles, new changes, new things happen. Things open, things close, things move, which means that your response has to be fluid and you have to be comfortable dealing in ambiguity. But that doesn't mean your response needs to anchor you to something that may or may not be true. So I think people have to get comfortable doing what young children are very comfortable doing, which is saying, I don't know. However, with the caveat of adding, but I will find out. Here is what I know. Here is what I can tell you. Here is what I know that is factual, and list that. But guessing or assuming, if you're 80% sure, you're unsure.
Warren, how important is a business resumption plan to an organization?
Yeah, business resumption plans, what most of us know as BRPs, are super important. You sort of know who's on deck and who's on first if something happens. I would just say that a good BRP in the event of an emergency means that your employees are not having to make decisions and choices. They sort of know what to do, and you've rehearsed and you're prepared. You know who's on first, like I said. So I think it's really important. The other thing I'll add to it is that very few people, including SDG&E, had a well built out BRP for a pandemic, right? And so thinking through what those emergencies possibly could be, it's not just the wildfires or the earthquakes or the storms, but a pandemic is, as we're living right now, just as dangerous. So building one out, being prepared, refreshing it at least annually is super important, and makes your job during an emergency so much easier.
As good as SDG is at handling emergencies and wildfires and unexpected events, did we plan or have a plan for a pandemic, especially of this size?
We had sort of a hybrid plan, but it wasn't perfect, right? And we've sort of had to build the airplane mid-flight. It's something I think we'll always have built out for the future. Emergencies are so they're in the DNA of a utility, right? Our crews get sent all over the country in the event of emergency. We're so prepared for that. This is just different. You think about our crews who work in field. If you have two employees who are in a truck, you have a two-person crew. Well, two-person crews are used to driving to a job site in the same truck. That could no longer happen, right? So we had to rent a bunch of cars. The list goes on and on. So no, Bruce, I wouldn't say that we were perfectly prepared. I would say our employees have stepped up incredibly well and been very committed to make sure that plane that was built mid-flight would fly.
Warren, we're starting to notice a second wave, if you want to refer to it that way, or a reoccurrence of the viruses in San Diego and California. How is SDG&E looking at either pivoting, changing, or what are you doing to address this with employees to make sure that they are moving in the right direction?
Yeah, I think that the key is to just be honest, right? So we have a number of employees, and I'm sure all of you too, yourselves, your employees, who are dying to get back to the office. I don't know if it's a kid thing, if it's a spouse thing, but folks really want to get back. And we're just not there yet, right? Putting anybody at risk is is just not okay. We've got to take care of our employees, and we've got to take care of our customers. So I think being honest with folks, checking in is so important. One story I'll tell you, I deal with elected officials, right? So most of the calls I get are complaints all day, every day. I had the mayor of Poway, some of you may know Steve Voss, call, and he just called to say hi and check in and make sure I was doing okay. Like, what? I'm used to complaints, right? Like a helpline over here. So, I would just say, anytime you can call and check in on your stakeholders, your customers, your employees, like you would your friends and family, just goes such a far way. I'll always remember that.
Hey, Erica, I want to ask you, in a short period of time, your firm has been able to hire and retain great and diverse talent. What is the secret to finding amazing, diverse candidates?
Well, I've got to say there is no secret, and I believe we got to share all the information here and really help each other. But what I have found is really being connected to various organizations that are dear to your heart. We talked about corporate social responsibility here. I'm a big believer of it. It's part of our core center of our business model. But even, I look at you, Bruce Mayberry, you're the chairman of the Central San Diego Black Chamber. And I think if more business owners out there could connect and affiliate with organizations that are dear to their heart, you're going to acquire and expand your network and really get in good talent that you may have not been exposed to if you would have been in your own circle. And I try to challenge myself and other people here too. The next time you do have an opportunity to join a mixer, whether it's through a webinar or Zoom, look for somebody that you don't know. Maybe you've seen their name or you've heard of them, and reach out to them. Reach out to me if I don't know you. I've received a couple contacts, and I'm a big believer too of anybody that reaches out, they invest in you, you invest back in them. There's partnerships that can come from that. And that's kind of my kickstart of how we started our business, is really kind of looking at the network and the individuals of things that they were compassionate about and bringing those in. And then they had a reference of a whole list of other really good talent. So it really encourages not just a collaborative approach, but a multi approach to really bringing talent from a lot of perspectives and backgrounds.
Yeah, the important thing is never to give up, and always believe that you can do anything is possible. Never talk yourself into that you can't do anything. And then also take the time to invest in technology infrastructure. We all have smartphones. Take the time, figure out Zoom, figure out Teams. So just take the time, ask questions, never be afraid to ask a question, because the only thing that's wrong is when you don't ask a question.
Everything you do, you have to have purpose in what you do, and really take a reflection. I know it's a pandemic. I know there's a lot of stress as a business owner out there. I can connect on so many levels. It's disappointment, but remember why you started the business, and don't forget that. If more businesses can really invest more in their people and understanding what their strengths are and really collaborating with them, you're going to find out that the talent you have is going to be so much better, and your offering is going to be so much at a different level than other businesses, and it's going to separate you, because your people are the greatest investments. And that's something that I hope we can take away here.
Is start putting together a crisis communication plan, determine roles, chain of command. Trying to figure it out during a crisis really puts any organization of any size in a really precarious position. So figure out who's in charge of what, who manages the existing business, who reaches out to customers who haven't been affected, who reaches out to customers who have been affected, who reaches out to regulators, who contacts employees, who's in charge of internal communication. Do you have your lists? Do you know who your advocates are? Do you know who your stakeholders are? Who outside of your organization can advocate for you? Where are those regulatory contacts? Put them together and have them there, because trying to put them together in the midst of a crisis really very rarely works effectively. Second, a crisis communication plan is an evergreen document. And what I mean by that is it has to be looked at and reviewed constantly. The reason most companies do have crisis communication plans, the reason that most of them are ineffective, and I'm not suggesting that most of them are, but the ones that are ineffective is because a lot of time is put into preparing them, and then they sit on a shelf, and then they gather dust. And then a crisis happens, and then everyone says, what do we do? And they grab the plan off the shelf, and the plan at that point is dated. So I would encourage everyone, now you've lived through the beginning of this, put that plan together and take a look at it every month or 90 days, 45 days, 90 days, and see what you have to edit, what you have to add, what you might have to change. And then finally, again, know the difference between reacting and responding.
I would just say, it sounds corny, but your utility has your back. Like, we want to help you. We want to find a way. So call us, reach out, don't be shy.